What is it? It's identification, description, arrangement, positioning, and relationship with other structures. And that's really key, because you often explain where something is in relation to something else within anatomy. Something called the anatomical position. It's the benchmark for where all of the other positions come from. And I'll explain a little bit more about that in a sec. Musculoskeletal anatomy is usually subsections split into different areas, and that's what we're going to do. So these are the areas that we're going to be looking at. Osteology, so the bones and the skeletal system. Arthrology, which is the joints. Myology, the muscles. And then kinesiology. This is the anatomical position. A person stood in this position, standing upright, head, eyes, toes pointing forward, feet are together, arms by their side with their palms of the hands facing forward. This is really important, because this is where you describe where things are. So the front of the body, or the anterior part of the body, that is what it is in that position there. Okay, so this is the anterior surface of your hand. So when you're writing your notes, you would say that there would be an injury to the anterior surface of the hand. But if someone stood like this, then that would look like the front of their hand, because their hands are turned in. So we needed to use one position to describe those areas of the body. That's why that's really important. When we're using these terms to describe where things are, always think back to that position there. Helps with movement as well. This again is really important. This is the midline of the body. So it's a straight line through your nose, in between your eyes, through your nose, through your mouth, belly button, all the way down. This is a reference point again, help to describe movements and where bits of the body are as well. So we would say that movements of the arm out to the side is abduction, but abduction is movement away from the midline of the body. So, yeah, gets a bit confusing, because in some books you will see some terms, and in other books you'll see other terms. Let's give an example. So in the knee, you have some ligaments in the knee. Ligaments on the inside of the knee, I've always called them medial collateral ligaments, but sometimes they're called tibial collateral ligaments. You look at the book and you think, he said it was this, but it's saying it's this, and it's actually exactly the same thing. There's also a lot of people who, when they started doing anatomy, the anatomists would name body parts after themselves. We're trying to get away from that now and use references like that, so that it's a more standardized approach to things. Movements as well and tests are all named after people, and we're trying to get away from those and standardize everything. This is used when you're writing in your files. So when you're writing your notes, these terms, these things that we're going to learn today are going to be really key, so that you can standardize your note taking, so that if you pick up your notes or you pick up someone else's notes, they're all exactly the same. We can describe exactly where things are. When you're dealing with other professionals, so if you're dealing with a GP or you're dealing with a surgeon or whoever, when you write your notes, the GP or the surgeon can look at them and go, this person knows what they're talking about. Okay, because their notes are very detailed, they're clearly laid out, and they're easy to read. Is anybody a physio? Any physiotherapists? When I first started doing osteopathy, would get information from physios, and they use lots and lots of little acronyms, and we don't use those in osteopathy. So it's very confusing when I first started working with physios. It's like, what do you actually mean? And I had to Google a lot of stuff to figure out what the physios were talking about. But I guess they would think the same of some of the things we use in osteopathy. So we need to standardise the language so that everybody knows what everyone else is talking about. When you're talking to a patient, you might say, okay, so there's a problem with the outside of your arm. This bit here hurts. But when you're talking to another clinician, you would say the lateral aspect of your bicep, or wherever it is. So we need to be able to quickly change between medical terminology when you're talking with your peers and layman's terms when you're talking with a patient.